This is All India Radio, Bangalore and Bhadravati. The Indian Constitution and Social Change. Here is Dr. V.K.R.V. Rao to speak on this subject.
When India fought for freedom under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi, it was not merely for the purpose of recovering national sovereignty. It was also for the purpose of establishing a new society in India that would give the people power over their government, bring about a radical improvement in the level of living of the masses, in terms not only of economic change, but also social change and cultural richness, reduce disparities in income, wealth, and concentration of economic power, and equalize opportunities. Gandhiji called it Ram Rajya, Jawaharlal called it socialism, and Vinoba called it Sarvodaya. There were, of course, differences in detail in these expressions, but they all involved social change and a better deal for the common man. When, therefore, the founding fathers of our Constitution met in the Constituent Assembly to draw up a written constitution for the country, they decided to embody in the Constitution itself the picture of the society they wanted to create in the country, so that it would not only serve as a guideline to the central and state governments that followed after independence, but also function as a solemn undertaking with the people. Thus, Article 38 of the Constitution has imposed on government the obligation that, I quote, "The state shall strive to promote the welfare of the people by securing and protecting as effectively as it may a social order in which justice, social, economic and political, shall inform all the institutions of the national life." Unquote. The task assigned, therefore, is the creation of a new social order. The accent is on social justice, and coverage extends to all institutions of the country, economic, social and political, and at all levels, central, state and local. This implies a massive era of social change, with primary responsibility for its implementation being placed on the state. Justice is the overall expression used to pinpoint the major element constituting the change. And justice means equity. And equity finds expression in equal opportunity for all citizens in all aspects of human activity. On the political side, it means democracy and the rule of law. On the economic side, it means a minimum standard of living for all people, a steep reduction in disparities in income and wealth, and an equal opportunity for all citizens to rise in the economic ladder that is permitted to exist. On the social side, it means equal respect for the dignity of all human beings in the country and the complete abolition of all types of social discrimination that involve an erosion of individual human dignity. The Constitution provides for the realization of this desired social order by guaranteeing to all citizens certain fundamental rights enforceable by the courts and certain directive principles of state policy, which shall be the duty of the state to apply in making laws for the country. The implementing machinery will be the central and state governments, whose structure, accountability, functions and mutual relations are also all spelled out in the Constitution. The directive principles of state policy, which are embodied in Articles 36 to 51 of the Constitution and constitute Part 4 of the document, spell out certain important ingredients of the new social order. Among these, the following deserve special mention as embodying the major thrust towards social change that has been envisaged after independence. 1. Equal rights to all citizens to an adequate means of livelihood. 2. Ownership and control of all material resources to be so distributed as to subserve the common good. 3. Prevention of concentration of wealth and means of production such as will lead to the common detriment. 4. Panchayati Raj and local self-government. 5. Right to work, education and public assistance for the economically handicapped. 6. Securing to all workers a living wage, decent conditions of work, and full enjoyment of leisure and social and cultural opportunities. 7. Free and compulsory education for all children up to the age of 14 years. And 8. Special promotion of the educational and economic interests of the weaker sections, especially the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, and protecting them from social injustice and all forms of exploitation. The directive principles constitute the charter of social change and of the new society for the masses of our people. While the rights accruing to the people from these principles are not enforceable by law, those embodied in Chapter 3 on Fundamental Rights are enforceable by law and cover civil liberty and equality before the law. And they have not only political implications but also social, cultural and economic implications. Altogether, therefore, the Indian Constitution is not just an instrument setting out the structure of government and the political rights of the people. It is an expression of the people's will for the creation of a new society. The preamble, which contains, so to speak, the soul of the Constitution and governs all its provisions, proclaims this in ringing language. I quote, "We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign democratic republic and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact, and give to ourselves this Constitution." Unquote. What the people have promised themselves was not available to them when they enacted this Constitution. Fulfillment of the promise meant change, and change of vast dimensions, affecting all people and in all aspects of life. Social change is thus the keynote of the Indian Constitution. In the light of what I have said, there is obviously no need to change the Constitution for bringing about social change or ushering in a new social order. All that is required is implementation. The position, however, is not so simple. The fundamental rights guaranteed by the Constitution are not necessarily consistent with the implementation of the directive principles of state policy, and the question has risen as to which of these two chapters of the Constitution, namely Chapter 3 or Chapter 4, has the overriding influence. As far as a strict and purely formal interpretation is concerned, it is possible to hold that the directive principles do not have a justiciable character and that therefore their implementation is restricted by the rights guaranteed to the citizen under Chapter 3. This, however, would be to take a wholly unrealistic view of the main objective of the Indian Constitution and of the forces of social change which are operating in the country. The fact that the very preamble of the Constitution, which I have quoted, sets out the basic objectives of the Constitution, which obviously govern all the provisions that follow, including Chapters 3 and 4, would bear out my contention. Nor must we forget that while the preamble makes no mention of property, it does mention specifically justice and equality besides liberty. Property is a right created by society, and the exercise of property rights has to conform to the implementation of social justice and equality of status and opportunity for all citizens. Under the circumstances, any formal or strictly juristic conflict between fundamental rights, and especially the right to property, and the directive principles has to be resolved in favor of the latter. This is especially so for the directive principles embodied in subclause B and C specifically require property rights to be so exercised as not to result in concentration of wealth and means of production to the common detriment, and so distributed as best to subserve the common good. The exercise of property rights, especially in the means of production, is thus conditioned by the social objective, and it is a social objective for the securing of which the people have given themselves this constitution. When, moreover, the people, functioning through their elected representatives in Parliament and by an overwhelming majority, declare themselves in favor of legislative action for securing the social objective, I cannot understand how they can be denied the exercise of this right, which in fact was the very essence of the principles underlying the Constitution. I may understand the relevance of objections based on practical economic grounds of the impact on production and growth without which social justice cannot become a reality. But this is a matter for legislative debate and legislative finding, and not a matter of juristic interpretation of the Constitution. This is a justification for the recent amendments to the Constitution, which are sought to give teeth to some of the clauses of the directive principles. In my view, what has been done by Parliament in its recent amendments to the Constitution is no more than what had become necessary to ease the process of social change and bring nearer the achievement of the new social order promised by the people to themselves in the preamble to the Constitution. The Indian Constitution is basically an instrument for social change in a peaceful and constitutional manner, without incurring the social loss and instability that violent revolutions involve. And it is but proper that we use the Constitution for the purpose of promoting social change and bringing about the new social order which the people desired in principle when they enacted the Constitution, and now desire to see implemented to the extent and in the manner in which they think it is immediately desirable to do so.
You were listening to Dr. V.K.R.V. Rao on the Indian Constitution and Social Change. This broadcast came to you from All India Radio, Bangalore and Bhadravati.